Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 260 based on novel. So let's start. Because of Qin Yang's relationship, the selection process of the second round only lasted less than 2 hours. Although the remaining time is still long, the selection of the third round of the finals has been booked the day after tomorrow. That is to say, they will have at least 1.5 days to stroll in the Burning Valley. In this regard, although the elders of the Burning Valley are helpless, there is no way to delay. No one expected Qin Yang to be so domineering. One person even changed the process of the whole competition, but this also proves Qin Yang's ability from the side. After all, not everyone has such terrible insight. Subsequently, Xiao Yan and his party also returned to the attic prepared for them by Fenyang Valley. Seeing them enter the attic, many people outside couldn't help but cast envious eyes on them. The attic where Xiao Yan and others live is different from that of most people. Generally speaking, the attic where they live can only be occupied by a team with the strength of Yuan Wang, while the team with less strength than Yuan Wang can only live in an ordinary courtyard with poor environment. However, the world is like this. The gap in strength leads to the different treatment they face. The so-called fairness will never appear in the world. 369 is the most complete explanation of all kinds here. As for Xiao Yang and others, they were invited here because of the previous incident. However, Xiao Yang thought that there should also be Qin Yang's deliberate arrangement. This Qin Yang is really not an ordinary person. He can not only monitor us, but also have a clear insight into the most elite part of those disciples. Unexpectedly, he ended the second round of screening by himself. The most important thing is that the elders of the Burning Valley also acquiesced to his means. It seems that they have high expectations for Qin Yang. After entering the door and waiting for several people to take their seats, Xiao Yixian went to serve tea for the people, while Luo Jin and Bai Hua had commented on what had just happened on the field. Their words were full of praise for Qin Yang, which also provoked Ju Tai and others to nod. Just now that guy released a flame, even I felt a threat. Did he also master the different fire? The great ape frowned. When Qin Yang released the flame in his body, he felt another very clear pressure. Although he was not sure whether it was a different fire, he also felt extremely afraid in his heart. No, it's not a different fire, nor is it any kind of animal fire. From my observation, that should be the power of the road of fire. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang on one side shook his head slightly, took the tea handed by the little doctor and slowly tunnel. Avenue of fire. Just after Xiao Yang uttered these words, the faces of several people present changed in an instant. The avenue of fire is one of the most powerful avenues known. Once the avenue of fire is mastered, its overall combat power will be greatly increased. Moreover, among opponents with the same attributes, if the opponent does not have enough powerful avenue power, then the road of fire will also play a great role in suppressing the flame of the latter. No wonder this guy can't find an opponent among the younger generation of Burning Valley. There's another reason. However, there is no doubt about his insight and combat power. The power of the road is only one aspect of his strength. If he doesn't have strong enough strength, the senior management of Burning Valley won't pay so much attention to him. At this point, the others nodded in agreement, and their hearts were extremely impressed by Qin Yang. Only when Xiao Yixian looked at Xiao Yang, his eyebrows and eyes were still full of self-confidence. She believes that Xiao Yang, who has a different fire, will never be afraid of Qin Yang's power of the road. Although the power of the road is strong, it still lags behind in front of the different fire, not to mention that the person Qin Yang has to face is Xiao Yang. However, at this time, outside the attic, a large group of disciples from Burning Valley came. Where countless lines of sight gathered, it was also the attic where Xiao Yang and others were located. Xiao Yang. Shaoyang Valley disciple Zhong Yanhao comes to challenge you. Shaoyang Valley disciple Sheng Hua, challenge you. Shaoyang Valley disciple. Before people arrived, a series of shouts had come, and many spectators around were alarmed by the momentum of these people. Even if many people swept onto the roof, their eyes quickly gathered one after another. Hey, I didn't expect that just after the second round of screening, there was another good play to see. And it seems that these Xiaoyang Valley disciples are coming for Xiao Yang. I want to take this opportunity to trouble him. If even these ordinary disciples can't solve it, Xiao Yang is naturally not qualified to be Qin Yang's opponent. Seeing such a scene in front of them, they immediately talked. They looked at the attic where Xiao Yang and others were from time to time, with a look of contempt in their eyes. Hey, people have killed the door. They dare not even open the door. They can't be afraid. Ha ha, it's just self-humiliation. Who told him to be big in front of so many people? In the end, it's not a rake. Creak. Just as the discussion became louder and louder, the closed attic door in front of a group of Xiaoyang Valley disciples was slowly opened. Suddenly, there was a silence outside the door. Then, Xiao Yang led Luo Jin and others out of the door. Seeing so many disciples of Xiaoyang Valley coming to make trouble, Xiao Yang glanced around, and his eyes flashed. As he expected, Xiaoyang Valley did not send any deacon or elder to take charge. It seems that those guys are willing to acquiesce in the trouble behavior of these disciples, otherwise they would not dare to find their own door in such a big way. Under the perception of Xiao Yang's soul power, somewhere outside the attic where they live, there are obviously several strong breath monitoring here at the moment. It seems that those guys are also holding the mentality of watching the play. Hey, do you want to test my strength? With a slight smile, Xiao Yang looked at Luo Jin and others on the side. Immediately, he looked at a group of Xiaoyang Valley disciples in front of him. Since everyone thinks highly of me and there are so many viewers, I can't make sense if I don't take your challenge. In that case. Before the words fell, Xiao Yang's toes were light on the ground, and his body immediately flew forward and fell on the ground in front of the door. He was so surprised that a group of Xiaoyang Valley disciples retreated one after another. The former smiled and held his palm, and the huge black ruler immediately fell into his hand. The ruler fell to the ground, and Xiao Yang's body turned sharply, unexpectedly. A huge circle with a radius of less than 1 foot was drawn on the ground. It's a waste of time to knock you down one by one. Just this circle. As long as I'm out of the circle, I'll lose. Xiao Yang surprised the people immediately when he said this. He despised the disciples of Xiaoyang Valley too much. Although these people standing in front of him at the moment are not disciples with strong cultivation, almost all of them are strong people above Huiyuan territory. With him alone, even if their combat strength is strong, they face the team of hundreds of people. It's impossible to stand in this circle and fight them from beginning to end. The boy is too big to trust. If he says such words in public, it depends on how he ends up if he loses. Ha ha, it's just a hairy boy. It's good to let him have some loss and long experience. Fortunately, it's still the boundary of Burning Valley. Even if it doesn't cause human life, it can be regarded as a lesson for him to walk in the mainland in the future. For Xiao Yang's words, those who watched the excitement naturally had a sarcastic smile on their faces. They didn't take Xiao Yang's words to heart when laughing with each other. Instead, several old people and Qin Yang in a distant attic couldn't help but show a surprised smile at this time. Hey, this Xiao Yang is a little arrogant. Qin Yang, he won't be inferior to you. I understand that although Xiao Yang is crazy, he also has his arrogant capital. Among all the disciples and challengers at this conference, he will be my biggest opponent. Hearing the words of the old man in front of him, Qin Yang nodded respectfully and informed the former of his judgment since his observation in recent days. Well, he will be a very challenging opponent for you in the future, but it's good. It must be good for your future. The old man nodded gently, raised his eyes, and looked at Xiao Yang through the gap between countless attics. Strange fire. Valley Master, this child may be the biggest help to burn the burning valley. At the same time, in front of Xiao Yang at this time, countless Xiaoyang Valley disciples listened to Xiao Yang's words, and their faces immediately became gloomy. They dared to face them with such an arrogant attitude. Xiao Yang in front of them was the first in so many years. Boy, you dare to talk wildly. I won't beat you down today. At the same time of the roar, a human shadow suddenly burst out in front of the crowd. The vigorous flame immediately attached to the body surface, clenched his hands into fists, and the fierce strength quickly gathered in the palm of his hand. However, in the blink of an eye, The human shadow had come to Xiao Yang, waved his fist and smashed Xiao Yang's head. It looks like he's going to knock the person in front of him down with one punch. The source gas condensation is not thick enough, the breath is floating, the operation is slow, and the speed is too slow, no. However, in the face of the disciple's fierce attack, Xiao Yang gently shook his head and commented lightly. Immediately, he slowly raised his palm. The white palm print seemed to fall on the chest of the figure in front of him. Then the palm of his hand shook slightly, and an extremely thick force erupted immediately. The figure's body immediately stagnated in mid-air, and immediately followed by a bang, its body flew out of control and returned to the crowd in the blink of an eye. However, the latter seemed a lot more embarrassed at this time. Damn, come again. The figure got up and shouted reluctantly. His body wanted to come forward again. Xiao Yang slowly raised a finger and gently waved, saying, "No, you're out of the circle. Next." Hearing this, the disciple regained his mind and looked at his feet. He was standing a few feet away from the circle painted by Xiao Yang. According to the rules just mentioned by Xiao Yang, he had lost his qualification to continue the challenge. Damn. I don't care what rules you break. Fall down. In a hurry, the disciple, no matter how much, rushed forward again, so he had to continue to move forward. Buzz. However, before he could get close to Xiao Yang's body, the latter's body was suddenly shocked. An extremely strong and domineering atmosphere swept out of himself and turned into an invisible force, which forcibly stopped the disciple's body. You've lost. Next. Sharp eyes glanced at the disciple in front of him at random. Immediately, Xiao Yang shouted at the other disciples behind him, and the crowd was in a commotion. After a long time, someone stood up again. As soon as his body shook, the source gas in his body immediately gushed out. After making all preparations, he set off again. In the blink of an eye, he came to Xiao Yang, with a flash of fire in his hand. The red flame source gas immediately condensed into essence and formed a pair of fist covers to wrap both hands. The fist wind flashed quickly and blasted at Xiao Yang like a meteor. The fiery fist wind came to Xiao Yang's face. The fierce strength did not spare every joint corner of Xiao Yang's whole body. If they were ordinary people, I'm afraid they could only hide. Unfortunately, the person they are facing now is Xiao Yang. Yes, the strength is enough, but the speed is too slow. Facing the attack of the disciple in front of him, Xiao Yang touched his toes on the ground, but his body twisted around. Unexpectedly, with an extremely strange skill posture, he hid all the face-to-face fist prints. Finally, in the shocked eyes of the disciple, his palm was printed on his chest again, and with a slight push, the figure immediately stepped back a few steps, although he was not hurt, but is already standing outside the circle. I lost. Although he was unwilling, the disciple still clenched his teeth, hugged Xiao Yang, and quietly retreated. Compared with the man just now, although he was unconvinced in his heart, he also knew that excessive struggle was useless and would even be ashamed of Burning Valley, so he chose to retreat quietly. Next. I'm Meng, come to challenge. Just as Xiao Yang's voice was falling, another figure rushed forward, and the galloping speed surprised the surrounding audience. Even his attack speed was much faster than the first two. The most important thing is that this guy's cultivation seems to have reached the initial stage of returning to the source, and he is an opponent of the same level as Xiao Yang. Yenxing Hammer, Tiangang Waterfall. Retreat. This time, different from the previous time, this guy named Meng Yu showed his good fighting skills as soon as he made a move. It seems that he also saw that Xiao Yang's single fighting ability is strong in front of him and it is difficult to defeat him with a simple attack, so he decided to use his fighting skills and calculate the victory with one blow. But even so, Xiao Yang was still indifferent. He stood still with a calm face. After his hands were negative, his breath converged into his body, his heart moved, and the faint golden light gradually covered his whole body. Looking at this, he actually planned to resist the blow. This guy, is he crazy? In the face of the fighting skills of opponents at the same level, even if he is confident and has extraordinary combat power, it is impossible to ignore his attack like this. Xiao Yang, what does he want to do? The presence of this scene in the field, not to mention the surrounding audience, together with the elders in the distance and Qin Yang, also showed a surprised look on his face. This Xiao Yang, What is he going to do? Does he really want to resist Meng's blow? Although Meng's cultivation and combat power are not first class in our valley, he also has strong combat ability. It seems that he is among those selected by Qin Yang this time. Xiao Yang dares to take him in such a big way. Either he has left a backhand, or the boy is deliberately entrusted. He can't pretend now. In the attic, several elders of Burning Valley also discussed with each other about Xiao Yang's situation at the moment. They really can't believe that Xiao Yang dared to put on such a high attitude in the face of opponents at the same level. Isn't it obvious that he wants to die? Qin Yang, what do you think? In this regard, the elder standing in front of Qin Yang didn't express his opinion at the moment, but handed the problem to Qin Yang next to him. He wanted to know Qin Yang's views on Xiao Yang. Disciple, Xiao Yang should have a lot of confidence. The golden light condensed from his body surface should be some rare fighting skill. He plans to use this to block Meng's blow. I don't think there will be much problem. Qin Yang looked carefully at Xiao Yang for a while, and then he said the answer in his heart. As soon as he said this, several elders of Burning Valley behind him also looked at each other one after another. After carefully reading Xiao Yang's state at the moment, he seemed to find something. He couldn't help smiling awkwardly and continued to look at the site where Xiao Yang was at this time. At the same time, under the eyes of countless people, Meng Yu's hit Yenxing hammer also fell completely and hit Xiao Yang's head hard. The terrible momentum screamed, and the invisible void was violently distorted. In the next second, the huge fire hammer completely condensed by the source gas would fall on Xiao Yang, but at the next moment, Xiao Yang's face was calm, but the light golden light suddenly released an amazing dazzling brilliance. A golden giant appeared above Xiao Yang's head with the brilliance, held his head high, and completely resisted Meng's blow. Until all the energy on the burning star hammer was exhausted, the golden colossus over Xiao Yang's head slowly dispersed. Looking at Xiao Yang again, the latter was still in the previous calm posture. At the moment Meng entered the battle circle, Xiao Yang's body appeared in front of him like a ghost, smiled and pushed it out again. Next. The faint voice of words spread again, and the human shadow flew across and constantly swept away towards Xiao Yang in the center of the venue. The high voice rang out continuously, and the sound of physical collision rang out one after another. However, in an hour, Xiao Yang had defeated more than 100 disciples of Shaoyang Valley and his forehead was full of sweat. Most of these people's accomplishments are not inferior to him. He has lost hundreds of disciples in succession. If he continues like this, I'm afraid he will lose here one moment. Endless wheel battles are a headache. Even Xiao Yang, who is far more powerful than his own cultivation, can't support it for a long time. However, there are still hundreds of Fenyang Valley disciples standing in front of him. They go on one by one, even if Xiao Yang can't support it until then. However, compared with the tension in Xiao Yang's heart at the moment, the surrounding audience who originally came to see the excitement and the disciples of Burning Valley in front of him at the moment have long been shocked by Xiao Yang's terrible combat power. Even Qin Yang and others who are far away at the moment are shocked. With one's own strength, he defeated more than 100 disciples of the Burning Valley. Even if the process seems particularly simple, it is more terrible than Qin Yang's achievements. Now it seems that Xiao Yang, who is still standing in front of the attic, is the biggest black horse in the sect of the Burning Valley. Who is this Xiao Yang? If you can, you'd better check his details and make friends with him as much as possible. Up to now, even those strong people who were not so optimistic about Xiao Yang's Yuanwang realm were also shocked at this time, and even some people were preparing gifts to make friends with him. For such a talented and strong person, his future is immeasurable. If he can have a good relationship as soon as possible, it will undoubtedly be of great benefit to them. Go and meet him. At the same time, in the attic in the distance, the elders of Burning Valley can't wait any longer. If Xiao Yang really defeats all these disciples, not only will he lose face, but also affect Xiao Yang's view of Burning Valley. If so, all they have done will be more than worth the loss. The reason why they tested Xiao Yang's strength was just to see his depth. But now, Xiao Yang's terrorist fighting power and talent have far exceeded their expectations. If they don't start to meet him now, I'm afraid it will be too late in the end. At the same time, The fighting in the war circle continues. In the face of stronger and stronger opponents, Xiao Yan is no longer as relaxed as at the beginning. He must deal with everyone carefully, resist all their offensives, and knock the other party out of the battle circle at the least cost. Dang dang. Relying on the golden elephant, Xiao Yan resisted the attack of the figure in front of him. When he stepped forward, this guy unexpectedly avoided Xiao Yang's attack with the help of his body method, and immediately wound around Xiao Yang's side, turned his hands over, and one palm fell on Xiao Yang's shoulder. You lost. Really? When the disciple smiled, Xiao Yan grinned. Although he was really tired, it was more than enough to solve this guy. Force image determination, retreat. When the disciple's two palms fell on Xiao Yang one after another, Xiao Yang shouted at the bottom of his heart. At the same time, his body shook violently. The ground under his feet and the invisible void trembled. A powerful force swept outward from Xiao Yang's body, and unexpectedly blew the disciple out of the battle circle. Drink. With a fierce drink, all the people present turned pale when they heard it. Their eyes full of shock and surprise constantly scanned Xiao Yang left and right. It's hard to imagine that he really defeated so many Shaoyang Valley disciples on his own. Even Qin Yang didn't have such combat power. The rest of you, go together. Xiao Yang's eyes swept through the audience, and his rebellious words came out again, and the faces of the people changed again. Xiao Yang's words were simply provoking Fen Yang Valley, but now that it's over, all the disciples of Burning Valley are unwilling to admit defeat. When they want to come forward, a dignified and old voice suddenly sounded over the attic. What are you doing if you don't go back to practice? Suddenly, the old voice shocked everyone present. At the same time, Xiao Yang immediately looked up and looked. An old man in white robes was standing in the air, looking at all the Burning Valley disciples below with a dignified face. Finally, Xiao Yang didn't have many accidents about the old man's appearance. His eyes swept away. Qin Yang and several other elders were standing in a loft not far away. Xiao Yang was surprised to see Qin Yang standing with the elder of Shaoyang Valley. This is the rest place for the foreign guests in the Burning Valley. How can you make a fool of yourself here? Get back to me. Everyone is locked up for 10 days and reflect on themselves. The old man's severe cry spread again, which suddenly changed the faces of all the disciples of the Burning Valley who heard this. They looked at the old man in the sky with fear. After noticing the latter's angry eyes, they quickly retreated and withdrew. However, in a moment, all the huge people and horses left. The formerly crowded streets have become empty. Hey, I didn't expect that even the elder of Burning Valley came out. Several other elders and Qin Yang seemed to be there, but they didn't show up. It seems that they should have seen the whole process of the challenge just now, but they didn't come forward to stop it. Maybe Huayan Valley also wants to take this opportunity to teach Xiao Yang a lesson, but I didn't expect that Xiao Yang is so strong. Lung defeated so many Shaoyang Valley disciples on his own. It seems that there will be a black horse that is not inferior to Qin Yang in the sect competition of Huayan Valley this year. Seeing the old man in the sky, the spectators around him suddenly showed surprise. After some words, they looked at Xiao Yang again, and there was an additional color of admiration, but they forgot who was sneering and sneering before. Recently, the deacons of the elders in the valley are busy with the General Assembly activities. They neglect to discipline these little rabbits, which makes them do such a radical thing. Please don't blame Mr. Xiao Yang. After dispersing the disciples, the old man slowly dropped down and fell in front of Xiao Yang. An old face showed a somewhat apologetic smile. He immediately bowed his hand politely to Xiao Yang. The latter didn't dare to neglect it at all. After he quickly saluted, he smiled and said, "You're welcome, sir." It must be said that the younger generation acted recklessly a few days ago, which made them feel aggrieved. I'm the one who should apologize. Having said that, the smile on Xiao Yang's face didn't mean to apologize. Seeing this, the old man couldn't help laughing after looking at Xiao Yang for a few seconds. Ha ha ha, I heard that Mr. Xiao Yang was young and promising a few days ago. When I saw him today, I was really a young leader and few people had heroic spirit. I'm Li Chengxiu, the elder of the Burning Valley. If I'm free, I'd like to invite Mr. Xiao Yang to have tea. Li Chengxiu glimpsed in the depths of his turbid old eyes. The remaining light from the corners of his eyes glanced at some people in the attic around him who were quietly watching the play at the moment, but he did not shy away from inviting Xiao Yang in the street. Hearing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help looking a little stunned. He was a little surprised. He didn't see the old man in front of him at the elders' table a few days ago, but he didn't expect that the latter was the great elder of Xiaoyang Valley. In this way, isn't he the most likely person to help him get the earth-scented body milk besides the leader of Xiaoyang Valley? However, just when Xiao Yangang wanted to nod his head and promise, he suddenly noticed the fierce eyes from several attics around him. That kind of eyes seemed to signal him to refuse. Seeing this, Xiao Yang was shocked, but the elder asked him to have tea. What are these guys excited about? And it seems that his eyes clearly mean a bit of threat. With this in mind, Xiao Yang doesn't know why. However, since this matter concerns himself, it's naturally impossible to shrink back because of one look in the eyes of these guys. What's more, Xiao Yang is a person who doesn't like threats. Any threat will only be regarded as the other party's farting. Therefore, any coercion and killing intention in their eyes, after a moment of hesitation, Xiao Yang regarded it as nothing. Nodded, Xiao Yang answered Li Chengxiu's invitation with a smile. At the same time, the mood in his heart gradually became hot. It seems that he is very close to the geocentric body milk. Seeing that Xiao Yang in front of him agreed to his invitation so happily, Li Chengxiu in front of him was surprised. He knew what Xiao Yang would face when he said that sentence, but he didn't expect that Xiao Yang would ignore the eyes of those guys like wolves. Was he really not afraid of these guys? Or is he sure he can escape from them? However, these are no longer important. Since Xiao Yang agreed to the invitation, Li Chengxiu, as the initiator, naturally wants to do it, and compared with Xiao Yang's inner mood, Li Chengxiu is also a little happy at the moment. Then, at the invitation of Li Chengxiu, Xiao Yang and Luo Jin went together. Although the others wanted to go, they were stopped. Even Luo Jin agreed to follow after Li Chengxiu hesitated, because he felt a slightly familiar smell from the young man. Although the breath was old and hard to recognize, it still prompted him to agree to Luo Jin's request. Along the way, the two people followed behind Li Chengxiu. The former asked a few questions from time to time, and the words were obviously around Xiao Yang. For this, Xiao Yang, who has many years of Taoist experience, naturally answered like a stream, which was almost prepared in advance. Of course, the old man was obviously not a good role to deal with. He was silent and gentle. The dialogue also made Xiao Yang feel nervous, and he couldn't help scolding the old fox in his heart. Until both sides were quiet, Luo Jin on one side quietly approached Xiao Yang's ear. Only two people could hear the whispering voice. Be careful. As far as I know, the old man is a real strongman of Yuanhuang level. Hearing this, Xiao Yang was shocked. When he looked up, he found that Li Chengxiu was also looking at them with a smile. It was as if he hadn't heard their dialogue at all. Seeing this scene, I was even more shocked, but when I thought about it, it was clear that the leader of the Burning Valley was a strong person in the great territory of the Source Clan. The people in front of me could become the great elder of the Burning Valley. It was natural that the cultivation was normal in the great territory of the Source Emperor. If the cultivation was only in the Source King, it would be a bit untrue. Please. This is my tea house. As soon as Xiao Yang stepped into the tea house, they were surprised and amazed at the scene in front of them. The tea room full of delicate fragrance is dignified and elegant. The walls are made of high-quality wood, and there is no connection gap at a glance. The tea room seems to be built by a complete giant tree. At such a glance, the size of the ancient trees built in this tea room is unimaginable. The walls of the tea house are hollowed out to form all kinds of strange flowers and plants, and even engraved with many unknown Warcraft patterns. Lifelike sunlight shines from those hollows and reflects on the fragrant floor. The patterns formed also change with time. There is a faint smell of tea floating in the air, like smoke and fog. When you inhale it, you feel that the whole person is much more energetic. Looking around, they even saw many high-level medicinal materials that are difficult to find outside. Most of the medicinal materials are called Xiao Yang. They are very excited. If these medicinal materials are taken out and any one of them is put at the auction, they are priceless. After the two sat down, Li Chengxiu stretched out his hand and called out of thin air. In the invisible void, he suddenly turned into a teapot. The pot body swayed and even heard the sound of tea shaking. He, according to what Mr. Xiao Yang said earlier, you are from the southwest border. It seems that you came to Burnyang Valley this time to ask for medicine. However, Mr. Xiao Yang, Burnyang Valley is not the alliance of pharmacists. If you ask for medicine, you should find them. But if you really need any medicinal materials, just ask. If I can help, I will go all out. Li Chengxiu smiled and took out 3 more teacups from nowhere. He made tea and put them in front of Xiao Yang and himself. Then he raised his head with a smile. Well, I'll thank you first. In the face of Li Chengxiu, Xiao Yang did not dare to neglect him at all. Moreover, they came to ask others to do things this time. Naturally, he was more considerate in terms of etiquette. Well, tell me what herbs you need. As long as I burn the burning valley, I will do my best to help you. I'm afraid only Gigu has the medicinal materials needed by the elder and younger generation in the whole southern region. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Li Chengxiu raised his eyebrows, looked surprised on his old face, looked at Xiao Yang, and asked curiously, what medicine is it? What the younger generation needs is the unique, geocentric body milk of Gigu. Bang! However, at the moment when Xiao Yang said this, Li Chengxiu, who was originally curious, got up in an instant. A terrible momentum immediately blocked the whole tea room. The terrible pressure immediately crushed and burst the teacup full of tea in front of the 3 people, and the mellow tea turned into 3 water swords in an instant. Even Xiao Yang, who was almost stabbed in front of them, could be forgiven. When the water sword moved, the fierce wind brought by them when they passed through in front of their eyes also made their faces tingle. At the same time, Li Chengxiu's turbid old eyes immediately burst into an indifferent look. His cold eyes stared at Xiao Yang in front of him without emotion. His face was particularly cold. After a long time, he said slowly in a very low tone, "Who told you this and who called you?" The indifferent voice no longer had the slightest mild emotion as before, but was a cold killing intention to gradually condense. At the moment, Xiao Yang and his 2 people had no doubt. If they didn't take the reason or method to make the old man calm in front of them, this guy would definitely kill them without hesitation. How could Xiao Yang think that his words directly touched the biggest taboo of burning Valley? Elder, I have no intention to burn Yengu here. I just hope I can. If you don't tell me, I'll kill you now. Before Xiao Yang's words fell, Li Chengxiu turned his hand. Xiao Yang's body suddenly rose uncontrollably in the air, and 3 fingers pinched it out of thin air. An invisible force immediately pinched Xiao Yang's throat, making his face turn red in the twinkling of an eye. Luo Jin on the side was about to get up, but he was waved by Li Chengxiu's big sleeve. Another invisible force immediately pounded on his chest. With a bang, his body flew out of control and hit the wall behind him. If Li Chengxiu hadn't deliberately protected it, I'm afraid the tea house would be destroyed. Boom. Elder, we have no malice here. Please stop. Then the next moment, in Xiao Yang's body, another force surged out. The huge soul force filled the whole tea room instantly, and an illusory figure appeared in front of Li Chengxiu. It was Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian appeared and stood between Xiao Yang and Li Chengxiu. As soon as his body shook, the surging soul power quickly enveloped Xiao Yang and forcibly dispersed the invisible force controlling him. Then he grabbed Xiao Yang's wrist and the 2 figures quickly retreated back. I can't imagine that there is a soul body in your body. It's not that easy to go. The sudden appearance of Xiao Xian also surprised Li Chengxiu for a moment. When he recovered, Xiao Xian had quickly retreated with Xiao Yang, but at the moment, the tea house had been blocked by Li Chengxiu's momentum. If Xiao Xian was alone, he might still leave, but if he wanted to take Xiao Yang, it was determined and impossible. Just the Source King, also want to escape from my hands? Stay with me. With a low cry, Li Chengxiu's body suddenly flashed. The next second, he appeared in front of Xiao Xian and slapped Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian was shocked by Li Chengxiu's attack. At this time, Xiao Yang had not recovered. Once they were attacked one after another, I'm afraid the price would be very deep. However, Xiao Yan had to call back all the released soul power. At the same time, the hand holding Xiao Yang's wrist also loosened quickly. The seal between his hands changed rapidly. At the same time, in the void in front of him, the surging source gas is also rapidly condensed. Almost at the same time when Li Chengshu's palm falls, an invisible long sword with upward blade is also condensed. Qing Mu sword formula, Dao Tian sword. When the long sword solidified, Xiao Yan suddenly burst out a violent drink. At the same time, the golden light on the body surface burst out, and a faint light burst out on the invisible long sword. The wind suddenly turned to form a wind wall to welcome Li Chengshu. Dang! A palm fell, the long sword trembled violently, the surrounding wind wall suddenly burst, the boundless vigorous wind hit, Xiao Yan's face suddenly became extremely dignified, and the golden light on his body quickly became dim. At the same time, the power contained in Li Chengshu's palm was also sharply reduced. Bang! After more than 10 seconds, the bodies of Xiao Yan and Li Chengshu who met each other in the field were all backward and out of control. Although Xiao Yan's body was more embarrassed, looking at Li Chengshu again, the look on his old face was no better. His body withdrew a few steps back, and the blood in his body was surging. The palm that he had just blasted against Xiao Yan, it was numb at the moment. This blow, these two people unexpectedly also touched a match. This video will end here.